Governing the Party, How the CPC Works, compiled by Chuntao. Chapter 7. Ensuring the ruling party is honest and upright. As the governing party in China, the CPC has always attached great importance to combating corruption and promoting integrity. Since the 18th CPC National Congress, Xi Jinping has reiterated,
"Only if we remain clean and upright in governance and exercise power in a fair way can we win public trust and support. If corruption is allowed to spread, it will eventually lead to the destruction of a party and the fall of a government."
To make the governing party remain clean, honest, and upright and stay firm in combating corruption is a magic wand vital for the CPC to gain trust and support of the people, and a strong guarantee for completing the building of a moderately prosperous society in all respects and realizing the Chinese dream of national rejuvenation. A striking contrast between the CPC and the KMT. It has always been the CPC's consistent and clear political position to combat corruption and promote political integrity. Early in the war years, the CPC gave prominence to remaining clean, honest, and upright, with many shining examples emerging. For instance, Fang Jimin, a Red Army leader in the early period of the CPC, wrote an article after he was arrested by the KMT in 1935, saying that since the decade when he became devoted to the revolution, he had always lived a simple life and never been extravagant. He had handled a huge amount of public money, but all the money raised for revolution had been used for the cause of revolution. He wrote,
"In the opinion of the KMT officials, this seems marvelous and even exaggerated, but being selfless for public interests is a moral virtue that all Chinese communists must have."
In his article, The Role of the Chinese Communist Party in the National War, written in October 1938, Mao Zedong said,
"Every communist engaged in government work should set an example of absolute integrity, of freedom from favoritism in making appointments, and of hard work for little remuneration. At no time and in no circumstances should a communist place his personal interests first. He should subordinate them to the interests of the nation and of the masses. Hence, selfishness, slacking, corruption, seeking the limelight, and so on, are most contemptible, while selflessness, working with all one's energy, wholehearted devotion to public duty, and quiet hard work will command respect."
While promoting integrity, the CPC was also resolutely combating corruption. In 1932, in addressing the emerging corruption cases in the army and the party, Mao Zedong vowed to fight against corruption to maintain the party's prestige and public trust, and said that fighting corruption should be the mandatory duty of Chinese communists. He then led a 2-year anti-embezzlement and anti-waste movement, which was the first massive anti-graft movement in the history of the CPC. In 1932, Xie Busheng, chairman of the Soviet government of Yeping village of Ruijin County, was sentenced to death for serious embezzlement by the interim Supreme Court of the Chinese Soviet Republic, an independent government established by the CPC in Jiangxi province in 1931. This was the first graft case punished by the CPC. Arousing resounding response in the Chinese Soviet area, it demonstrated the CPC's determination of rooting out corruption. In 1933, Mao Zedong, then acting as chairman of the Executive Committee of the Provisional Central Government of the Chinese Soviet Republic, signed an order on punishing embezzlement and waste, which stipulated that those who embezzled public funds of 500 yuan or above must be sentenced for death. Deterring those corrupt officials, this order was also the rule to follow for the anti-graft struggle in the Soviet area. After that, Zhuo Xiangyun, Xiong Xianbi, and some other corrupt officials were severely punished in accordance with this order. Upholding integrity and combating malconduct, the CPC had gained the wholehearted support of the people in the Soviet area. From 1935 to 1948, the CPC continued to attach importance to combating corruption and upholding integrity. According to the administrative program for the Shanxi-Gansu-Ningxia border region, the government should practice clean governance, strictly punish embezzlement by government staff, prohibit any of them from exploiting public office for private gains, and the CPC members violating this rule should be more severely punished. During this period, Mao Zedong ordered severe punishment for Huang Kegong, Xiao Yubi, and other officials with outstanding achievements in war, but who later became corrupt. Huang had achieved miraculous feats in battle since 1927 and during the Long March. In October 1937, he shot and killed in Yan'an a college girl, Liu Qian, after his marriage proposal was rejected. This case attracted close attention from the CPC Central Committee, the Central Military Commission, and the government of the border region. A meeting chaired by Mao Zedong decided to sentence Huang to death. In a letter to Lei Jingtian, president of the higher court of the border region, Mao said that Huang had achieved glorious achievements in war, and both Mao and the CPC Central Committee felt regret for Huang's death penalty. However, Huang could not be pardoned for the crime he had committed because the crime was so despicable and cruel, and Huang himself had departed from the correct behavior of a party member, a revolutionary, and a human being. If he was to be pardoned, the party would be unable to educate the Red Army, other revolutionaries, and ordinary people. Therefore, the CPC Central Committee and the Central Military Commission had to sentence him to death, considering his crime and in accordance with the discipline of the party and the Red Army. Because Huang was not an ordinary person, because he was a senior party member and a veteran Red Army general, we must not pardon him. All the party members, all the commanders and fighters of the Red Army, and all the revolutionaries should take warning from Huang's case. Xiao Yubi was also a Red Army veteran performing outstanding military exploits, with more than 90 wounds on his body. To help him recover his health, Mao Zedong once specially approved supplies of milk to him. However, when acting as director of a tax office in Qingjian County, Shanxi Province, Xiao became arrogant because of his achievements and defied laws. He embezzled public funds of over 3,000 silver dollars and even sold cooking oil and flour, which were in short supply, to the KMT army. After his crime was discovered, Mao ordered the death penalty for him. A commentary in the Jifang Daily on January 5, 1942 said,
"In the land of clean government, no weed like Xiao Yubi will be allowed to grow. Once there is such a weed, we must remove it."
Lin Bok, chairman of the Shanxi-Gansu-Ningxia border region government, said at that time that 5% of the border region government officials were involved in corruption. But since Xiao had been executed, the conduct of border region government officials had been remarkably improved. At a mass rally in Yan'an in February 1940, Mao Zedong proudly praised such a good style.
The Shanxi-Gansu-Ningxia border region is the most progressive region in the country. It is a democratic anti-Japanese base area. Here there are, first, no corrupt officials. Second, no local tyrants and evil gentry. Third, no gambling. Fourth, no prostitutes. Fifth, no concubines. Sixth, no beggars. Seventh, no narrow self-seeking cliques. Eighth, no atmosphere of dejection and laxity. Ninth, no professional friction mongers. And 10th, no war profiteers.
In his report on coalition government, delivered in 1945, Mao said,
"It is characteristic of the Kuomintang areas that, exploiting the national crisis for profiteering purposes, officials have concurrently become traitors and habitual grafters without any sense of shame or decency. It is characteristic of China's liberated areas that, setting an example of plain living and hard work, the cadres take part in production in addition to their regular duties. Honesty is held in high esteem, while graft is strictly prohibited."
After visiting Chongqing and Yan'an, Tan Ka-ki, a prominent figure in the overseas Chinese community of Southeast Asia, also drew a conclusion that the hope of China lays in Yan'an. In contrast, the KMT had become increasingly corrupt after controlling state power. The official newspaper of the Sichuan provincial government published an article on May 16, 1944, to condemn the social ills.
Governance has been unprecedentedly bad, and corrupt officials are seen everywhere. The higher position an official has, the more astonishing graft he practices.
Famous scholar Ma Yinchu also criticized with anger.
While hundreds of thousands of officers and men are fighting against the Japanese, and millions of people have become homeless, prominent officials and capitalists in the rear are making no contributions but exploiting the national crisis for profiteering purposes. How could they have the nerve to perform such an inhuman act?
Tang Zong, a senior staff member of Chiang Kai-shek, wrote in his diary,
"Those who violate the law today are all in power. The government has been badly corrupted from the top level, and officials in the economic, political, and military sectors have all been corrupt."
As China's ally, the United States was also dissatisfied with the corruption of the KMT. U.S. General Joseph Stilwell, who served in the China-Burma-India theater during the World War II, said what he saw in the KMT was corruption, negligence of duty, chaos, economic difficulty, exorbitant and multifarious taxes and levies, and empty words. But the program of the CPC was reduction of taxes, rentals and interests, and improvement of productivity and the people's well-being. John Stuart Service, an American diplomat in China prior to and during World War II, reported to Washington in 1944 that graft was flagrant throughout the government and military agencies in Chongqing, and the KMT must be responsible for the increasingly corrupt government because it hadn't adopted any measures to curb the widespread graft, profiteering, and speculation. But later, when he visited Yan'an as a member of the U.S. Army Observation Group, Service saw a well-organized movement with political and economic programs. He said that while the KMT had lost its revolutionary nature and split up into groups, the CPC was maintaining its revolutionary nature because of continuous struggles and had further developed itself. He attributed the CPC's success to its close ties with the people. The KMT then recklessly extorted money from the people during the process of takeover after the victory of the anti-Japanese war. Li Tsung-jen, former vice president and acting president of the Republic of China, said in his memoirs that the so-called takeover by the KMT in Peiping, Beijing, was indeed robbery takeover, as derided by the media. The public also mocked the KMT officials responsible for takeover as winners for gold, houses, cars, money, and women. Folk songs in Peiping said people even suffered after the KMT government took over the city. Xiao Yulin, a senior KMT official responsible for takeover in the economy, once admonished Chiang Kai-shek that if graft continued, the KMT would lose public support even though it had already recovered the lost territory. He also foretold that a time bomb of failure had already been laid in the cheers for victory. Chiang Kai-shek had to admit in a speech in January 1948 that none of the revolutionary parties in the world had been as dispirited and corrupt as the KMT, and such a party should have already been eliminated. After the KMT retreated to Taiwan in 1949, he made an in-depth analysis of the reasons for the failure and said that the KMT was defeated by the CPC not because the CPC had supreme powers, but because the KMT itself was corrupt and incompetent, and the KMT was defeated by its own weak points. Summing up the reasons for the KMT's loss of the mainland, John Leighton Stewart, a former U.S. ambassador to China, said that on the whole, the CPC was able to give the impression, both to the Chinese masses, especially the peasantry, and to foreign observers in and out of China, that it was truly devoted to the cause of the people and was truly seeking to promote in China the cause of democracy and to win for China a position of real independence and strength in the family of nations. The success of the CPC was because its members were highly dedicated, while this was not seen in some KMT members. A Chinese saying goes, "Those who command popular support will gain state power." During the War of Liberation, the CPC rallied the overwhelming majority of the people because of its clean and upright character, while the KMT lost people's support because of its corruption. Among the first 81 academicians of the Academia Sinica selected by the KMT government in 1948, only 9 went to Taiwan with the KMT in 1949. Besides 12 going abroad and 1 dying, the other 59 stayed on the mainland. Why did the majority of these knowledgeable elites in China choose to stay on the mainland? Ji Xianlin, a famous scholar, recalled in his old age,
"The same as other middle and old-aged intellectuals who didn't choose to go abroad or go to Taiwan, I knew little about the CPC, nor did I yearn for communism so much. But we knew well about the KMT, so we welcomed the CPC and felt excited, and we hoped and believed a bright future would come."
Corruption and anti-corruption after 1949. For the changes of conditions after the founding of the PRC in 1949, some party and government officials failed to withstand the sugar-coated bullets and became corrupt. In his directives on the struggle against the 3 evils and the 5 evils, Mao Zedong warned the entire party,
Particular attention must be paid to the fact that the corrosion of cadres by the bourgeoisie results in serious cases of corruption. Be sure to detect, expose, and punish those involved, and to take this as a major struggle.
In December 1952, the CPC Central Committee launched a campaign against corruption, waste, and bureaucracy, and Mao Zedong required party committees at all levels to mobilize the broad masses and be brave to fight against tigers and expel those who violated state laws and party discipline out of the party.
In minor cases, the guilty should be criticized and educated. In major ones, the guilty should be dismissed from office, punished, or sentenced to prison terms, to be reformed through labor. And the worst among them should be shot,
he said in the directives. During this period, the corruption case of Liu Qingshan and Zhang Zishan shocked the whole country and educated the entire party. Liu and Zhang were both officials who had experienced wars. They remained faithful and unyielding even under severe torture, but soon became corrupt in peace. Mao paid close attention to their case and ordered the death penalty for them. This case educated and warned a whole generation of Chinese communists. As a result, the party and the government had kept clean and upright for quite a long period after 1949 and gained support of the broad masses. Tao Jiwei, a KMT general coming over to the CPC for hatred of corruption in the KMT, said, "With this measure, the CPC will definitely long live." A party member exposing Liu and Zhang's crime later said that their execution had educated the party for several decades. After the reform and opening up, because of the profound changes in the economic system, social structure, distribution of interests and people's ideas, as well as the unsound systems and regimes, corruption cases occurred frequently in some fields. At a meeting of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee in April 1982, Deng Xiaoping said,
"A number of cadres have been corrupted in the brief year or two since we adopted the policy of opening to the outside world and stimulating the economy."
He made a comparison of the circumstances in the 1980s and the 1950s.
Quite a few are involved in economic crimes. Their misdeeds are more serious than the crimes exposed in the days of the movements against the 3 evils and the 5 evils. At that time, people who had embezzled 1,000 yuan or more were rated small tigers, and those who had embezzled 10,000 or more Big tigers. Today, we have many cases of very big tigers.
He said. Not long before his retirement in 1989, Deng hoped the third generation of collective leadership should do some things to satisfy the people.
There are chiefly two things. One is to carry out the reform and opening to the outside world with greater daring, and the other is to move swiftly to punish corruption.
He said in a talk with leading members of the CPC Central Committee in June 1989.
If we do not punish corruption, especially among high-level party leaders, we run the risk of failing.
When talking with the Chinese-American physicist and Nobel Prize winner Professor Chuntao Li on September 16, 1989, Deng said,
"We must oppose corruption and promote clean government. We have to do this not just for a few days or months, but throughout the whole process of reform and opening to the outside world."
In the 1990s, China started to build a socialist market economy. To address the spreading corruption during the transition period, the CPC Central Committee strengthened efforts in combating corruption. In his report to the 16th CPC National Congress, Jiang Zemin said,
"To combat and prevent corruption resolutely is a major political task of the whole party. If we do not crack down on corruption, the flesh and blood ties between the party and the people will suffer a lot, and the party will be in danger of losing its ruling position or possibly heading for self-destruction."
Therefore, the struggle against corruption is a serious political struggle concerning the very survival or extinction of the party and the state, he said. According to him, the most serious corruption in history is the corruption in the administration of officials. In China's feudal society, selling ranks and titles and corruption related to this had caused a collapse of dynasties many times, and we must pay attention to such historical lessons. During this period, the Central Collective Leadership with Jiang Zemin at the core paid special attention to the oversight of power. In his speech, "Leading Cadres Must Stress Politics," delivered on September 27, 1995, Jiang Zemin said,
"At present, there are some cadres who make fewer demands on themselves as they rise in rank and acquire more power. As cadres acquire more power, there are fewer people who have oversight over them, but more people who stand to benefit from serving them. When people are not cautious and do not promptly receive needed education and oversight from their party organizations, it becomes easy for problems, even big ones, to arise."
During a speech in January 1996, he stressed that since the party has been in power, especially in new historic circumstances, whether we can successfully solve the problem of internal party supervision, especially the supervision of senior and middle-rank officials, has become a very important problem that must be addressed to strengthen party building. This added new ideas for combating corruption and promoting integrity. In the 21st century, the collective central leadership with Chuntao as General Secretary also set great store by combating corruption and promoting integrity. The report to the 17th CPC National Congress in 2007 created the term "fighting corruption and upholding integrity" and established it as one of the basic tasks for party building, together with building the party ideologically, organizationally, institutionally, and improving the party's style of work. At the meeting commemorating the 90th anniversary of the founding of the CPC, held on July 1, 2011, Hu said,
"The growth of the party over the past 90 years shows that cracking down hard on and effectively preventing corruption are crucial in gaining popular support for the party and ensuring its very survival, and they are therefore major political tasks the party must attend to at all times. Therefore, the whole party must remain vigilant against corruption, be fully aware that fighting corruption will be a protracted, complicated, and arduous battle, and give higher priority to combating corruption and upholding integrity. The party must demonstrate greater confidence and resolve and take more forceful measures to improve the institutions, for punishing and preventing corruption and unswervingly fight corruption.
In his report to the 18th CPC National Congress in 2012, Hu readjusted the order of basic tasks of party building, moving fighting corruption and upholding integrity ahead of institutional building.
Combating corruption and promoting political integrity, which are major political issues of great concern to the people, are clear-cut and long-term political commitments of the party. If we fail to handle this issue well, it could prove fatal to the party and even cause the collapse of the party and the fall of the state,
he said in the report. Fatal to the party and collapse of the party and the fall of the state have demonstrated the determination of the CPC Central Committee to combat corruption and uphold integrity. With unremitting explorations, the CPC has better understood and further practiced combating corruption and promoting political integrity. A poll conducted by the National Bureau of Statistics showed that from 2003 to 2011, the percentage of those surveyed who were satisfied with combating corruption and promoting integrity in China increased from 51.9% to 70.6%, while the percentage of those surveyed who thought corruption was curbed increased from 68.1% to 83.8%. According to evaluation by Transparency International, China's clean governance has improved year by year. Liao Ran, a senior program coordinator of the Asia and Pacific Department at Transparency International, said in his article, Transparency International's Views on China's Anti-Graft Progress, published in Global Times, December 10, 2012.
China has achieved progress in combating corruption during the past decade. The most remarkable changes are made by China. Compared with the conditions in 1993 or with other countries, China has made the most rapid changes.
We must also be fully aware that the anti-graft work is a long-term and arduous task, particularly as the reform and opening up intensifies because of the profound changes in economic system, social structure, distribution of interests, and people's ideas, as well as the unsound systems and mechanisms. Power is not effectively checked and supervised, and some weak-willed leading officials failed to withstand the sugar-coated bullets. Some of them abused power for personal gain, engaged in power-for-money deals, embezzled money or took bribes. Some lived a luxurious and dissolute lifestyle or were morally corrupted. Some appointed officials by favoritism, formed cliques or practiced graft. Some rode roughshod over or oppressed the people. Some bought or sold access to offices or took unethical steps to get important positions. Some even colluded with criminal cliques and acted as their protective umbrellas, being blinded by greed and extremely audacious. There are several characteristics among current corruption cases. First, the number of cases is high. In recent years, the number of cases in violation of state laws and party discipline has remained high. Each year, more than 100,000 cases are investigated, with more than 100,000 party members and officials being punished. Many of these cases are very serious, and some are interrelated. Some regions or departments have even been involved in massive corruption. For instance, organization departments are engaged in selling access to offices. Judicial departments are engaged in criminal cliques. Engineering departments are engaged in using inferior materials, etc. Second, the amount of funds involved is high. Many corrupt officials are now taking increasingly huge bribes. For example, Wei Pengyuan, former deputy director of the National Energy Administration's coal department, was found to have stored more than 200 million yuan in cash at his home, the biggest amount seized by procuratorates in a single case since 1949. There are many cases involving low-level but extremely corrupt officials. For instance, Ma Chaokun, former general manager of the water supply company of Beidaihe District in Qinhuangdao, Hebei Province, was found to have stored 120 million yuan in cash and 37 kilograms of gold at his home, and to own 68 properties in Beijing and Qinhuangdao. Chen Wanshu, accountant of Huangho village of Haidian district, Beijing, was found to have misappropriated public funds of 119 million yuan and was criticized by Xi Jinping at the 5th plenary session of the 18th CCDI. Third, corrupt officials are found in more departments and with higher ranks. Among corrupt officials investigated and punished in recent years, besides leaders of departments with real power, there are also officials from public institutions, which used to be regarded to have little chance of graft. Corruption has even been discovered in the military. Officials involved in corruption cases are at bureau level, provincial level, and even vice premier and premier levels, which is very astonishing. Corrupt tigers such as Bo Xilai, Zhou Yongkang, Xu Kaihu, Ling Jihua, Su Rong, and Guo Boxiong have had an extremely bad influence at home and abroad. Fourth, investigation of the cases becomes increasingly difficult. Some corrupt officials have made elaborate plans in an attempt to smother their crimes and evade law. They are using more concealing, intelligent, and high-tech methods, and more crimes involve cross-border activities, which makes them more difficult to investigate. For example, Guo Jingyi, former inspector of the Department of Treaty and Law of the Ministry of Commerce, independently or jointly with bureau-level officials of the Ministry of Commerce, the State Administration of Industry and Commerce, and the State Administration of Foreign Exchange, as well as staff of intermediary companies, was engaged in power-for-money deals in the approval, oversight, and service of foreign investment cases. His crimes need professional knowledge and are very concealing. The existence and spread of corruption have not only seriously damaged the party's image and organizations and worked against the interests of the country and the people, but also undermined the cohesion and fighting force of the party and damaged the party's ties with the people. If the party was not determined to curb corruption, its lines, programs, and policies would not be well implemented. The reform and opening up as well as the modernization drive would be impeded, and the party's status as a ruling party would even be imperiled. Therefore, combating corruption is still an arduous task. As the report to the 18th CPC National Congress said,
Some sectors are prone to corruption and other misconduct, and the fight against corruption remains a serious challenge for us.
Soon after the 18th CPC National Congress, Le Figaro published an article which said that improving the public trust of local officials to make them better serve the people is a major and urgent challenge for Xi Jinping, which requires addressing major corruption cases. An editorial of Singapore's leading Chinese newspaper, Lianbei Zhaobao, said the tasks and challenges in front of China's new governing team are extremely arduous. The Xi Jinping era has just started, and the real test has also started. Combating corruption alone will be a severe trial of Xi's political willpower and courage. Winning public trust by combating corruption. At the press conference held on November 15, 2012, the newly elected General Secretary of the CPC Central Committee, Xi Jinping, said,
In the new circumstances, our party faces many severe challenges, as well as many pressing issues within the party that need to be addressed, particularly corruption, being divorced from the people, and being satisfied merely with going through formalities and bureaucracy on the part of some party officials. We must make every effort to solve such problems. The whole party must stay on full alert.
2 days later, when presiding over the first group study session of the Political Bureau of the 18th CPC Central Committee, Xi stressed,
Building a fine party culture and a corruption-free party is a major political issue of great concern to the people. Worms can only grow in something rotten. In recent years, long pent-up problems in some countries have led to resentment among the people, unrest in society, and the downfall of governments, with corruption being a major culprit. Facts prove that if corruption is allowed to spread, it will eventually lead to the destruction of a party and the fall of a government. We must keep up our vigilance.
Mentioning alert and vigilance twice within 3 days indicates that she attaches great importance to preventing and combating corruption. An article in the Taiwan newspaper China Times said that the new CPC leadership will launch a movement against corruption to carry out running the party with strict discipline, as Xi Jinping said at the press conference by members of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the 18th CPC Central Committee. It is anticipated that the movement will be rare in the history of the CPC in terms of the scope and toughness of attack. Recent facts have proved this. After the 18th CPC National Congress, the new central leadership has adopted intensive measures to strengthen the fight against corruption. Among them, strictly punishing corruption in accordance with state laws and party discipline is the most immediate and effective measure, and it is also the most urgent wish shared by the people. A storm against corruption has been launched across the country at both the central and local levels since the 18th CPC National Congress. Discipline inspection departments and judicial departments at all levels, in accordance with the requirement of comprehensively strengthening party discipline, have kept up the pressure and taken concrete measures to combat corruption. Everyone is equal before state laws and party discipline, and anyone who violates party discipline and state laws, whoever he is and whatever position he holds, will be fully investigated and severely punished. They ensure that all cases of corruption are investigated and that all corrupt officials are punished, never being soft in dealing with them. By now, more than 100 provincial and ministerial level officials have been removed for corruption, even including some at the vice premier and premier level. In 2015, both the number of officials receiving party or government discipline actions and the number of officials under investigation subject to administration by the Organization Department of the CPC Central Committee hit record highs since the reform and opening up. Disciplinary departments nationwide investigated 330,000 allegations. About 336,000 officials have been subject to internal party punishments, and 14,000 case files have also been sent to the courts. A total of 90 officials subject to administration by the Organization Department of the CPC Central Committee were investigated, with 42 being sent to the courts. Since 2012, cases have been filed for the first time in all the country's 31 provinces, autonomous regions, and municipalities. In this year, 32 officials at provincial and ministerial level were removed, including 3 members and 4 alternate members of the CPC Central Committee. These officials were from ministries and commissions of the central government, local party committees, people's congresses, governments, and political consultative conferences, as well as state-owned enterprises. A total of 19 tigers, such as Li Chuncheng, Jiang Jiemin, Li Dongsheng, and Wan Qingliang, have been brought to trial, 14 of whom have been convicted of graft. In the table of results for catching tigers in 2015, many records have been created in many aspects. On June 25th, Xiao Tian, Vice Minister of the State General Administration of Sports, was put under investigation for serious breaches of discipline and law, being the first tiger in the sports circle after the 18th CPC National Congress in 2012. On July 12th, Shi Xiaoming, Vice President of the Supreme People's Court, was placed under investigation for alleged severe breaches of law and party discipline, being the first tiger among the judiciary authorities after the 18th CPC National Congress. On July 24th, Zhou Benshun, Party Secretary of Hebei Province, was placed under investigation for graft, being the first provincial party chief in office removed after the 18th CPC National Congress. On July 30th, Zhang Lijun, former Vice Minister of Environmental Protection, was held in a probe of corruption charges, being the first tiger in his institution. On August 18th, Yang Dongliang, head of the State Administration of Work Safety, came under a corruption investigation, being the first tiger in the system of work safety administration. On October 7th, Su Shulin, governor of Fujian province, was put under investigation for suspected serious disciplinary offenses, being the first incumbent governor sacked after the 18th CPC National Congress. In November, the anti-graft campaign spread to the financial sector, with Yao Gang, vice chairman of the China Securities Regulatory Commission, being removed from his post on graft charges. In the sector of state-owned enterprises, officials held in probes for graft included Liao Yongyuan, general manager of China National Petroleum Corporation; Wang Tianpu, general manager of China Petroleum and Chemical Corp; Xu Jianyi, chairman of FAW Group Corp; Deng Qilin, president of Wuhan Iron and Steel Group Corp; Zhu Fushu, general manager of Dongfeng Motor Corp; Si Xianmin, general manager of China Southern Airlines; Chang Xiaobing, chairman of China Telecom, making 2015 the year with the most tigers being sacked from state-owned enterprises since 2012. In recent years, the CPC Central Committee has been catching both tigers and flies. On January 20th, 2014, Xi Jinping said some people thought tigers were far away from them, but flies appeared in front of them every day, which urges us to well address corruption problems that directly affect people's livelihood and various problems that prejudice their interests in order to protect legitimate rights and interests of the people. In fighting against the 4 forms of decadence, which refers to formalism, bureaucratism, hedonism, and extravagance, in 2015, 49,000 persons in 37,000 cases were investigated for violating the 8 rules across the country, with 34,000 persons being subject to party and government discipline actions. With many flies directly affecting people's livelihood being caught, the contingent of party members has been significantly purified, and the people and party members have been inspired. Since the 18th CPC National Congress, the CPC Central Committee has also been stressing the repatriation of fugitive corrupt officials. In the second half of 2014, the Ministry of Public Security started the half-year Operation Fox Hunt, grabbing 680 fugitives suspected of economic crimes from 69 countries and regions, of whom 290 were arrested and 390 surrendered themselves to justice. Among all those grabbed, 208 were involved in cases of more than 10 million yuan and 74 involved in cases of more than 100 million yuan. 196 had absconded more than 5 years ago and 117 from 10 to 22 years ago. A campaign to capture corrupt officials who had fled abroad, carrying the name Skynet, was launched in April 2015, with arrest warrants for the 100 most wanted corrupt Chinese officials who had fled overseas being issued. Only 3 days later, Dai Xuemin, the first most wanted fugitive, was captured. In this year, 1,023 fugitives were brought back to China, including 18 on the most wanted list. For the first time, the number of fugitives brought back to the country surpassed the number of officials fleeing abroad, and major progress was made in extraditing fugitives from the United States and Europe. Retrieving of a number of fugitives indicates that there is no hiding place overseas for fugitive officials, and the guilty can never escape justice. The party can be more powerful only when it is honest and upholds integrity. It has been widely recognized at home and abroad that fighting graft with an iron fist and correcting the 4 forms of decadence are major political achievements of the CPC since 2012. According to a poll conducted by Xinhuanet.com in 2015, 91.5% of the surveyed were satisfied with the anti-graft work, which was 16.5 percentage points higher than that in 2012. 90.7% were confident about curbing corruption, which was 11.4 percentage points higher than in 2012, 90.6% agreed that the rising incidence of violation of state laws and party discipline had been reversed, which was 5.2 percentage points higher than in 2012. A report in the Financial Times on August 5, 2014 said,
Since Xi Jinping became General Secretary of the Communist Party in November 2012, China has been convulsed by the biggest anti-corruption drive in its post-1949 history.
On January 2, 2015, the Singapore newspaper Lianbei Zaobao published an article saying that anti-graft has been an effective weapon for the CPC to establish political new normal and gain public support. And in such a political background, anti-graft work is expected to be the top priority for Xi Jinping to comprehensively deepen the reform. Justice breeds trust, and honesty fosters credibility. It can be foreseen that the new collective central leadership, with the biggest anti-corruption efforts since reform and opening up, will definitely gain more public trust. At the fourth plenary session of the 18th Central Committee, held in October 2014, Xi Jinping vowed to intensify the fight against corruption, maintain the high-handed posture and zero tolerance for corruption, and continue investigating and punishing every corruption case discovered with firm determination and great courage. This further highlights the attitude and determination of the CPC Central Committee in combating corruption. Making the exercise of power more transparent. Reviewing various corruption cases, we can easily find that under-the-table deals and non-transparent processes of decision-making are among the important reasons of corruption, while the best way of preventing corruption is to place things in the sunshine. Only by improving the transparency of exercise of power and make the power exercised in a transparent manner, subject to people's oversight, will those officials having evil intentions be prudent in exercising their power, and the corruption will be rooted out in the bud. Only through guaranteeing the people's right to know and right to supervise can the power be better supervised and a structure be established in which the majority supervises the minority. Transparency is the natural enemy of corruption, and the more transparent the government is, the more effective corruption control efforts will be. Sunshine can kill bacteria and root out the extravagant atmosphere for corruption. It can purify the environment and put an end to the hotbed of corruption. It can reveal corruption and ensure power is exercised in a standard and orderly way. But in China, all the decisions and behaviors of the government had long been confidential, and ordinary people had no right and no way to know. With most of the sectors uncovered by the sunshine and even shelter of sunshine, corruption had been growing at an astonishing speed. Since the reform and opening up in 1978, the CPC has recognized that a transparent government decision-making process is a must for law-based governance, and transparent exercise of power is indispensable for building a modern law-based government. Therefore, China is making unremitting efforts in building a transparent government and making power be exercised in a transparent manner. Disclosure of government information is the best oversight of corruption. In 2008, the regulations on the disclosure of government information, the first special regulations on disclosing government information, became effective, which require government departments to disclose government information in a timely and accurate manner, so as to guarantee the citizens' right to know, participate, and supervise. Freedom of information is now the rule, and secrecy is the exception. As the regulations are implemented, more information has been uncovered by the sunshine. In 2015, the Beijing municipal government disclosed 1 million pieces of government information, including 7,832 regulatory documents and 480,000 pieces of government information in key sectors. In the meantime, the CPC has been increasing transparency in party affairs, issuing a document on increasing transparency in party affairs by community-level party organizations. improving the system of internal reporting system, timely publicizing information on party affairs, such as important decisions, appointment of officials, implementation of self-discipline, etc. Party members have more access to know party affairs and express their views. After the 18th CPC National Congress, facilitated by measures such as law-based governance, transforming functions and improving party conduct, China has been accelerating the building of a transparent government. Exercising power in an open way and disclosing government information have increasingly been compulsory instead of an alternative option for governments at all levels. They have disclosed more information on administrative approval, administrative licenses, and administrative penalties, publishing power lists, and thus promoting transparency in the exercise of government administration has been a new trend. For instance, Guangzhou publicized on November 21, 2013, 3,705 administrative items subject to review among its 48 administrative units. Xicheng District of Beijing established a website for transparency in exercising power, where people can check the list of 6,000 administrative items subject to review among its 75 departments. Langfang City of Hebei Province, Nankai District of Tianjin, and many other localities have also established such websites, which have become effective platforms for local governments to promote transparency of government affairs. In October 2014, the fourth plenary session of the 18th CPC Central Committee vowed to establish a system of power lists to eliminate room for power rent-seeking. It required governments at all levels to publicize on a regular basis their functions, legal grounds, duties and powers, administrative procedures, and supervision methods. The focus should be disclosure of government information on fiscal budgets, allocation of public resources, approval and implementation of key construction projects, as well as social services. With this requirement, Anhui Province released a list of 1,712 powers on October 31, 2014, significantly promoting clear definition of government powers, curbing abuse of power, and improving public trust of the government. In recent years, government budgets and final accounts, departmental budgets and final accounts, the three public expenses, spending on official overseas trips, buying and using government cars and official receptions. The results and rectification of auditing have been increasingly publicized, and transparent public finance has become a trend. Governments at all levels have established a system of information disclosure, releasing government information through media in a timely, all-round, and accurate way, strengthening interaction between the government and the people. Particularly, important information and major events must be publicized to the public, and death tolls of natural disasters will not be regarded as state secrets. Public tenders and bids are adopted in government procurement, eradicating under-the-table deals. Disclosure of such information has made power become exercised in a transparent manner and in a visible way. It has helped prevent power from being out of control and prevent mistakes in decision-making. It also helped reduce the opportunities of power rent-seeking, preventing and curbing corruption at its source. There used to be widespread complaints about corruption in justice, and China has adopted measures to increase transparency in justice and law enforcement. At a central conference on judicial, procuratorial, and public security work held in January 2014, Xi said, "Sunshine is the best of disinfectants." Without exercising power in a transparent manner, there would be no public credibility. The more transparent law enforcement is, the more authoritative it will be, and the more able to win public trust. In cases involving people's interests, how many secrets must be kept? Except for circumstances stipulated by law, open trials must be held in all cases.
Open trials promote justice, and transparency ensures impartiality. We should take the initiative in making trials open and inviting oversight to render manipulation and judicial corruption impossible.
he said. The system of declaring personal assets by public officials has also been promoted in recent years. The decision on some major issues concerning comprehensively deepening the reform, adopted at the third plenary session of the 18th CPC Central Committee, proposed to experiment with publicizing personal information of newly appointed officials. In a circular issued in December 2013, the Organization Department of the CPC Central Committee said all those who did not report real and full personal information would not be promoted. The third plenary session of the 18th CCDI in January 2014 decided to carry out random inspection of the personal information reported by officials. The party has also started to clean up naked officials. The term refers to those officials whose spouses have emigrated abroad, or without spouses, whose children have emigrated abroad. Many corrupt officials are also naked officials. They had their wives and children emigrate abroad when they were in power, which would facilitate transfer of corrupt money and leave a way of escape once their crimes were exposed. Even if they failed to flee and were punished, their family members would still be safe and enjoy the wealth. Vicious circles would easily be formed. The emigrated spouses and children need large amounts of money, impelling the naked officials to commit corruption. Without family worries, the naked officials have no scruples at all in committing corruption. For these reasons, naked officials are high-risk groups of corruption and are also called reserve corrupt officials. However, naked officials have long been loosely supervised and managed, and many of them didn't report the facts of emigration of their spouses and children. They were found to be naked officials only when they were investigated for corruption. As the number of naked officials is growing rapidly, the best way of oversight and management is to disclose the information and restrict their promotion. In February 2014, the Organization Department of the CPC Central Committee issued new management measures on naked officials, requiring for the first time that naked officials must not hold leading positions in party and government departments, public institutions, and state-owned enterprises, as well as important posts involving military, foreign affairs, state security, and confidential work. Those naked officials, already holding the above positions, shall either ask their spouses and children to come back home or be transferred from their posts. The measures also require organization and personnel departments at all levels to adopt management of naked officials on a regular basis and make full play of public oversight. All naked officials who don't report to organization departments must be punished. According to the revised regulations on the work of selecting and appointing leading party and government officials by the CPC Central Committee in January 2014, those officials whose spouses have emigrated, or having no spouses but their children have emigrated, will not be considered for any promotions. In accordance with the decision of the CPC Central Committee, party committees and organization departments at all levels further strengthened oversight and management of naked officials in 2014. By December that year, a total of 3,200 officials at or above deputy division chief level across the country had reported emigration of their spouses or children if they had no spouses. Nearly 1,000 officials holding key positions and whose families refused to return were moved to unimportant positions. In Beijing, which was criticized by the central inspection teams for the problem of naked officials, it was announced that 46 naked officials at municipal department level had been moved to unimportant positions. Guangdong and Fujian provinces, which had a large number of naked officials, also strengthened management of this group. In Guangdong, 2,190 naked officials were found, with 866 of them being moved to unimportant positions, including 9 at provincial department or prefecture level. In October 2015, the CPC Central Committee issued the norms of the CPC on clean governance. This is the CPC's first regulations calling on the entire party for clean governance and self-discipline since it became a party in power, which is of great importance to further advance the campaign to build a clean and honest government and combat corruption, strengthen internal party supervision, and maintain the political integrity against corruption of Chinese communists. We have every reason to believe that with the improvement of China's socialist market economy, socialist democracy, and the legal system, as well as the constant social and cultural progress, the CPC is, relying on the strength of itself and the support of the people, fully capable of reducing corruption to the minimum and working to establish a harmonious society that is honest and upright. End of Chapter 7.